My name is Yusef. I'm the owner of a radio blog called High Frequency Radio. I've been studying law for about the past 15 years. And during that time, I've gained the ability to gain a perspective on exactly what is happening in this particular country. One of the problems that I see that is happening in society is that people don't read. They have actually been dumbed down. There's actually a lady who has a series of videos on YouTube. Her name is Charlotte Isherbite.
My name is Charlotte Thompson Isherbite, and I served as Senior Policy Advisor in the United States Department of Education under the Reagan administration, during which I had access to all of the most important documents for the restructuring of not only American education, but global education. And I'm also the author of The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, which gets into all of this, gives the background of what I saw not only in the Department of Education, but as a local school board member.
She was a government insider and a whistleblower who spoke about the plot to dumb down the citizens of the United States. Today, I see that that is an actual occurrence, that people have been dumbed down. And people may say, well, what gives you the authority to make that determination by individuals, but you know more than any other person? I don't think that I'm a know-it-all or anything like that, but I know what I'm talking about. I know what I've studied. The first thing that I think that is a problem here in the United States is that the average citizen does not understand what the meaning of U.S. citizen is. I think that is a major problem. And it goes back to the Constitution, history. You have to have a little knowledge of history. You have to actually have done a lot of reading to be able to perceive exactly what is going on. But I believe it begins and ends with U.S. citizen, what happened in 1933, what happened with the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, and 20 years later, House Joint Resolution 192 of June 5th, 1933, Public Law 73-10, the rescission of the Gold Clause of the Constitution, and the removal of lawful money from this particular system. That in itself, the removal of the money, believe it or not, is the underlying basis for everything that's happening in this country and what you're seeing, what's going on. People don't understand that being a U.S. citizen is like being a serf. To get some insight about U.S. citizen, if you just take the Constitution and look prior to the 14th Amendment, you will notice that every time you see the word citizen, it's with a capital C, which was a particular person, place, or thing. And every time you see it after the 14th Amendment, it's with a lowercase c, which is a common noun, which could be just about anything. And this is how they allow corporate entities to gain citizenship, or the ability to have a personage, the ability to have rights and duties and obligations and responsibilities to contract and sue and be sued in the court. This is what was given to artificial persons. And what the majority of people do not understand in this country is that the United States is a corporation. There is a distinct difference between the United States of America and United States. United States is within the 10-mile square in Washington, D.C. that has been marked out by the Constitution under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Within that particular clause, you'll find the 10-mile square as well as the insular possessions of the United States, which constitute a territory, if you will. And you may be wondering, well, how does that include us? If we're living in the several states, if I'm from Texas, I was born and raised in Texas, how does that bring me under federal jurisdiction? How do I have a federal citizenship because of that fact? Well, the evidence of that is your social security number, because that constitutes a territory for the United States, which falls under Congress, because as I said, we're talking about Article 1, which is the legislative branch of government. So we're talking about Congress. A U.S. citizenship is a congressionally created citizenship. It's not a de jure citizenship. It didn't come about in the borning of this particular country, even though this country was set up for white people, no doubt. The 14th Amendment and the original spirit and intent and purpose of that particular amendment was to give citizenship to newly freed slaves, and an answer to the Jim Crow laws and things of that nature that were occurring in this country. But what actually happened is that the entire country was placed into a certain status that was subservient to your public servants, those in the government. There is a case that you can read. It's called Susan B. Anthony versus the United States, where the Supreme Court justice in that particular case lays out and gives you a treatise on exactly what U.S. citizenship was, that there was no U.S. citizenship prior to the 14th Amendment. And that question has been answered with the adoption and confirmation of the 14th Amendment. Due to that fact, there is an operational presumption on the part of the government officials. They are allowed to presume and assume things about you because obviously they haven't spoken to everyone in the country. But they operate off presumptions, assumptions, and color of law. And what color of law is, it's a perceived law. It looks like a law has the force of law, but it's not lawful. It's legal, but it's not lawful. It's enforced through contracts. You see, the American people, we have the ability to contract unlimited, but that's a two-edged sword. We can use a contract to actually contract our rights away, which is usually what happens most of the time when we sign our name on documents and don't read these particular documents. We're signing our life away and we're giving authority over to certain individuals. A contract is a very, very powerful piece of paper. It's more powerful than the Constitution. This is why there's a clause in the Constitution that prevents anyone from affecting the obligation of contracts, because contracts are powerful. So they're getting you into a contract as if people will just stop and think for a second. You sign your name on everything. So the government is pulling you into a contract, and the bait for getting you into a contract is benefits and privileges, offering you benefits and privileges like the stimulus check and things of that nature. There is going to be something asked for in return of that. Nothing is free. And what you're giving up is you're giving up your sovereignty when you accept benefits and privileges from the government. You're stating that you need the government to take care of you. It is a form of welfare. This is the welfare state. This is a socialist, Marxist, communist state. And the elimination of all private property through the use of offering benefits and privileges to U.S. citizens who have taken on the status of U.S. citizenship due to their continued use of a Social Security number. Social Security was created in the 1930s during the Great Depression by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He created that particular system, and it's based off of a welfare state. You couldn't take care of yourself, so they made a deal with you. It's called the New Deal. Well, we'll take care of you, and you're going to be our slaves. You're going to work for us. You're going to pay this national debt. If people would take a second and read the Grace Commission report that was conducted by the Reagan administration in the 80s, in that report, it tells you that 100% of your taxes goes to pay the interest on the national debt. Due to that fact, the next question that we would have to pose is, well, how is the United States government funding government? How they're funding government is through bonds. These bonds are floated through the Federal Reserve, and they are pledging the labor of the American people to pay back these bonds. This is done primarily through the prison industrial complex. That's why I don't think there'll ever be any prison reform, because of the money that's being made from prison. If you go to secinfo.com and you pull up the B424 prospectus of Correction Corporations of America, which is the largest private prison industry in the country, if you take the time to read that prospectus, you'll see the per diem that they are receiving for every prisoner in every bed in a prison. And this is also the reason why they were able to get something from the federal government that allows them to guarantee that they will keep it at 100% occupancy in the federal prisons. This is all about money. So I don't think there's going to be any type of prison reform, any type of significant prison reform, because the real issues are never broached. How are they making money off of the prison system? And individuals aren't taking the time to look into it. Just like what's happening with Donald Trump. People aren't taking the time to look into it. I actually got into an argument with a friend of mine regarding recent allegations by Jeffrey Goldberg. He's a news reporter. I believe he's with Fox News. And he basically stated that Donald Trump said that, American soldiers were losers for fighting in the war.
Developing right now, President Trump is now denying a blistering report in the Atlantic magazine that says the president called dead American soldiers, quote, losers and suckers during a visit to France in 2018.
Willing to swear on anything that I never said that about our fallen heroes. There is nobody that respects them more. So I just think it's a horrible, horrible thing. We made a great evening into, frankly, a very sad evening when I see a statement like that. No animal, nobody, what animal would say such a thing?
We should note that CNN itself has not independently confirmed this report. We are joined now by the reporter behind it, Jeffrey Goldberg. He's the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, and he broke the story. Jeffrey, the president has also tweeted this morning that he never called John McCain a loser. That another part of your story. We know that's not true, and we played his comments calling McCain exactly that in 2015. But let me ask you your response to his denial of the story regarding the visit to the Belleau Wood battle scene outside of Paris in 2018. How do you answer those denials?
I stand by my reporting. I have multiple sources telling me this is what happened. And so I stand by it.
Now, of course, this is through 4 anonymous sources, aren't any names given or anything, and yet a whole section of the populace will take it on its face as the gospel. And this concerns me because people lack the ability to think critically for themselves. Okay. Now, when you're dealing with the public, in particular public servants, whenever they make a statement and there's some controversy about it, they need to be subjected to an affidavit. They need to sign an affidavit under penalty of perjury with full commercial liability for the statements they make. What you're going to find out is that none of these public servants will sign an affidavit. They understand the power of an affidavit, and they understand what could happen if they do something under penalty of perjury. People understand there are no laws against lying. They can lie to you all day. Okay, but you have to hold their foot to the fire with their statements, and how you do that is you make them come in and pledge something under penalty of perjury, whether it be in a courtroom or an affidavit or something to that effect. They need to be held accountable for the statements that they're making. Yet you've seen a large section of the population just believe what's ever being put on the news media. And that, in my opinion, is a sheep. That's in my opinion, a person who will not make an individual confirm their statements, and you just believe what is being said, without any particular basis is, by definition, someone who's easily influenced, someone whose mind is easily controlled.